G'day everyone, I'm OngoingFee, and today I want to talk to you about blood points. There are around 90 killer perks these days, so unlocking them all is more expensive than ever. We all need more blood points. So where do we get them? Survivors. Look at them. They're like piñatas filled with points just waiting for you to smack them. They're so crafty and greedy and speedy and bouncy. Blood points. Let's talk about the most efficient way to extract the blood points from our 4 little piñatas. First, let's break down the different categories. Now, each of these categories are capped at 8,000 blood points in game. So once you hit 8,000, it'll just say max. So you can't focus on one, you need to think about earning all of them. Hunter. This one is all about chasing survivors. As long as you aren't standing still in a corner staring at the wall, you will be able to max this one easily enough, as long as the game goes for long enough. So we won't worry about this one anymore. Brutality. This one you get by hitting survivors and kicking shit. Break a pallet, brutality. Kick a generator, brutality. Smack a survivor, brutality. Relatively easy to get, and you don't really have to go out of your way in order to get them. Sacrifice. This one is a bit harder. You get sacrifice points when they spill out of your piñatas after hanging them up. You get more points for hooking a survivor 3 times as opposed to only hooking them once and then having them go through all 3 stages and die on hook. So spread those hooks out. Deviousness. With the exception of the nobody escapes bonus, Deviousness is all about best utilizing the killer's power. Because of that, each killer earns these points differently, and some are better at it than others, which we'll get to in a minute. But first, let's talk about Bloodpoint Perks. The big boy that everybody should have is Barbecue and Chili. You get this by unlocking it through Leatherface. This is a complex perk that does 2 things. It gives you a stackable 25% blood point bonus the first time you hook each survivor. So if you hook each survivor at least once, you'll get 100% bonus, so double your blood points after the game. A terrible game with Barbecue and Chili can get you more points than a perfect game without it. It also shows you the aura of any survivors 40 plus meters away from you when you hook a survivor. It's a great information perk for most killers. These 2 factors combine to make Barbecue and Chili a must-have perk for point farming. Now, let's talk about all the other blood point perks. Beast of Prey, Thrill of the Hunt, Distressing. All of these perks sound quite similar to Barbecue and Chili in that they give you more blood points, but their math works out a little bit differently. These perks give you an increased blood points earned in-game, which means that it just helps you get to your cap for that category faster. It doesn't actually let you breach that 8,000 cap like Barbecue and Chili does. Because of that, the 2 Hunter category bonuses, Beast of Prey and Thrill of the Hunt, are kind of useless because Hunter is already a pretty easy category to max out. Distressing is kind of nice because it gives you a bonus to Deviousness, which is the hardest category to get points in. But it also comes with a pretty huge negative in that it increases your terror radius, which gives survivors a bit more of a heads up that you're on the way. It means they have more time to get to that irritating, painful loop when really you would have much rather them be closer to the generator by the time you got there. There are also many add-ons that give bonuses to blood points. So, for example, the padded bear traps that Trapper gets. These can increase the points that you earn, which is quite nice, but that also falls in the same vein as the other blood point perks, where they will help you get to your 8,000 cap, but you can't go over it. Now, all of the blood points you get from offerings, on the other hand, they work the same way as Barbecue and Chili, so they give you a bonus after the game. They will help you surpass the 8,000 cap. That's all offerings that grant bonus blood points. So the Wraith offerings, Survivor Pudding, Bloody Party Streamers, all of those will give you bonus blood points, and the math works the exact same way as Barbecue and Chili, and they do stack. So what makes Deviousness the hardest? I mentioned before that this category is all about using a killer's power, but they're not all created equal. For example, Trapper earns his Deviousness by catching Survivor in his traps. Now, he gets a lot when that happens, but anyone that has played Trapper knows that that can be rather difficult because it's largely dependent on Survivor's actions as to whether or not these traps get stepped in. As a result, many Trapper games end with quite low Deviousness points. Other killers, however, have much more control over their own Deviousness point generation and can gain it more effectively. Let's talk about some of the best ones. The Doctor. Old Zappy Boy's power is used to find survivors and end chases with them. As a result, his power gets used quite frequently, and since there's very little a survivor can do to avoid the shocks, and he gets a large amount of points for shocking and then hitting a survivor afterwards, Doctor fills up Deviousness rather easily. He's not the strongest killer out there at the moment, which means that sacrifice points can be a bit of an issue depending on which rank you're at. But his teachables are great, so you really can't go wrong getting him if you think he looks interesting. And his laugh is fantastic. Hag. The Trappy Slappy is one of my favorites for farming blood points. You get a large amount of Deviousness every time a survivor steps in a trap, and then even more if you successfully teleport to that trap and hit them afterwards. But Fee, I can hear you ask, didn't you say that traps were a downside for Trapper? Why are they an upside for Hag? The reason for this double standard is that Hag can drop 10 traps at a time with a much wider activation radius, and she doesn't have to hike halfway across the map to pick her traps up individually. Hag is also a very strong killer right now, which means that sacrifice points will come quite easily. The only downside to farming points with Hag instead of someone else is that she benefits very little from Barbecue Chili's information side of the perk. Barbecue is still the best perk for farming on Hag. It just means that her other 3 perks are going to have to fit her a little better. Wraith, the Bing Bong Ding Dong. Wraith's Deviousness points all come from uncloaking near survivors and then hitting them. Since you'll be jumping in and out of cloak while finding and chasing survivors, Wraith's Deviousness points are a dream. They will cap out quite easily. And Wraith has recently had a buff, so he's in a pretty good place right now, and sacrifice points will be pretty easy as well. Finally, Wraith is very, very fast at moving across the map while cloaked, so he benefits immensely from the information side of Barbecue and Chili. Combine this with the fact that Wraith has a ton of perks that he works really, really well with, and Wraith is my top pick for Bloodpoint farming. You already start out with him unlocked, so get cracking. Finally, let's talk about playstyle. There is no room for camping when it comes to Bloodpoint farming. I'm not talking about being a nice killer, I'm just talking about efficiency here. You need to be injuring and downing survivors to get brutality. You need to be out chasing survivors to get hunter, and you need to be using your power to get deviousness, and you're not going to get any of those if you're just standing around the hook wasting time. Sacrifice points, like I mentioned before, flow much slower if survivors get multiple stages from a single hook, so as counterintuitive as it is, you want them getting unhooked. Camping is inefficient and it will hurt your blood points. Don't do it. Well, that's all I have for you, my little pinata bursters. If you found the video informative, please like and subscribe, and comment any educational content that you would like me to cover off on next. I'm pretty sure I know everything, so all you have to do is ask. You can also come visit the stream at any of my pipes listed in the description below if you would like to pick my ginormous brain live. See you soon.